Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Who Gives a Dram. I'm your host, Connor Gilbert. I'm happy to be here, and I am happy that you guys are here with me. After a very, very gloomy Memorial Day week last week, but a fantastic Memorial Day weekend, I hope that each and every one of you had a great Memorial Day weekend, no matter where you are. And it's important to remember the reason we celebrate Memorial Day and to honor those that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country, the great people that serve in our armed forces or even our first responders. I like to think about them. I have a lot of family that are veterans, that are, currently first responders or former first responders, and I just have a massive amount of respect for the people that go out of their way to make sure our lives are safer and better. Allows me to do this podcast, allows me to have McTavish spirits, and so on and so forth. So thank you to those that allow us to live free. Memorial Day week was pretty gloomy here in New England. It definitely wasn't the best week leading up to it, and even Friday, Saturday were a little iffy. But the weather ended up being nice towards the end of the week, especially Monday afternoon, right at the tail end of Memorial Day. We got some sun and it was pretty warm, so I definitely enjoyed the week, and I'm happy to be back. We definitely have some news to hit on. We definitely have some things to talk about as I get my iPad set up here with some notes. We have some new whiskey releases. We have some breaking news that I'm going to drop on the podcast today. We have some fairly old whiskey news that I just found out within the past few days before I've recorded this podcast. And we're going to go on that. I'm going to give you my reaction to that. And the main thing I want to talk about today is the importance of brand transparency in this new age of whiskey, with so many brands, so many different distilleries, craft distilleries, NDPs. Why does brand transparency matter? And I'm going to speak from the heart a little bit. I don't have any facts to back anything up, but I have a very strong stance on the transparency of brands and how I think that should be perceived by somebody in the industry. But before we get into anything, I want to remind you guys that if you want to pick up McTavish Spirits, go to our website, www.mctavishspirits.com. We still have plenty of the War Chief available to ship to you right in time for summertime. $74.99 plus I think it's $20 shipping, which I can't change, by the way. So I can't I can't change the shipping price. I wish I could. I get a lot of people reaching out to me. $20, that's a lot. I can't help it. If I could pay for shipping for every single person, I would. But, money, unfortunately, makes the world go round. So I can't spare that expense while building a new company. So you can buy the War Chief on our website. It'll ship right to your door. I believe it's 46 states, partnered through our online partner, Bottle Nexus, who is great. And if you want to pick up some more of the Legacy Series #1, there's, I think, just about 40 bottles left on Sealbox. I got the numbers the other day from Ivy, and I think it's just about $40. Or, I'm sorry, not $40, 40 bottles. Pretty sure it's just around there. $79.99 plus shipping to about 40 states. So if you haven't picked up your Legacy Series yet, this is the time to, because once those 40 bottles are gone, it's done. There's no more Legacy Series 1. There's no more of it. And we're not going to re-release it. We're not going to do anything. So go get it. It's $80 plus shipping. But I promise, if you are a bourbon drinker and a Scotch drinker, this is the perfect marriage of the two. I'm a little biased, but I think it's the best product that we've released so far. As much as I love the Keeper, which we're going to be drinking today, and as much as I love the War Chief, that's my baby, I think Legacy Series really shows the potential and what we're trying to do with McTavish Spirits. So anyways, there's that. You can follow me everywhere, Connor_whiskey, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, McTavish Spirits, at McTavish Spirits on all social medias. And we will keep you up to date. We also have a newsletter on our website where you can sign up and give us your email, and we'll blast out information that you guys will be the first to know. Some pretty important dates, like if we're traveling, if we're doing events, things like that, you guys will be the first to know. But anyway, we're on episode 134, which is awesome. Love that for us. I just this morning while I was kind of answering emails, I was checking out the COVID Chronicle episodes that I did back in the beginning of 2022, which were the COVID Chronicles #2 episode is by far my most downloaded episode on via Buzzsprout. It blew up. I got like tens of thousands of downloads. I don't know how or why, but it did. You know, if I average a few hundred, that one averaged several thousand. It was crazy. And it has like 25 views on YouTube. But I was going back to that era of my life before McTavish Spirits, before traveling, before anything, during COVID, or at the tail end of COVID, I should say, and reminiscing on things while I was answering my emails this morning. Been a busy day. It's just about dinner time here. It's just after 4 o'clock. I like to eat dinner between 5 and 6. So right after this, I'm going to go get dinner, but I wanted to record the podcast first. And I want to start by saying this. This podcast is going to release on Thursday, May 29th. And I want to say here first and foremost that I can officially announce that McTavish Spirits is going to be distributed in the great state of Rhode Island. And I am so happy. Round of applause, first of all. Everybody here in my apartment. It's just me. Thank you. Please, please, please tone it down. Hey, you stop it. Sorry, that was terrible acting. I was like pretending to rile down the crowd a little bit, you know. Terrible acting. I'm sorry. That was embarrassing. Anyways, announcing Rhode Island distribution. Yeah, this is where I grew up, my home state between Connecticut and Rhode Island. And I am so excited to open up Rhode Island, which will eventually lead to greater New England. But Rhode Island is first and foremost. We're teaming up with fantastic partners in McLaughlin and Moran Distribution. I want to thank Terry Moran personally for being my contact, and for believing in McTavish Spirits, believing in a little craft whiskey brand, believing in myself and Graham and the entire team. I cannot wait to grow McTavish Spirits in Rhode Island. So if you're listening to this in the great state of Rhode Island, or if you know Rhode Island and you have spots that you think would be great for our whiskeys, if you have spots that you think would be great for events, for tastings, people that you think I should meet, please let me know. Reach out to me, and let's chat. Let's chat about Rhode Island. Chat about where our whiskey can be. Different types of bourbon groups, whiskey groups, stores, restaurants, bars, etc. I want to be everywhere. I want to be everywhere in the state of Rhode Island, and I'm committed to growing this state personally. I live here, so it's easy for me to go out and speak to anybody and everybody. So I'm very excited that Rhode Island is opening up. We're opening up Rhode Island for distribution, and I cannot wait. Again, thank you to McLaughlin and Moran for believing in us. We're just about... at this point, we've already signed the contract, so it's all good. Product should be touching down within the next week or so, and then it's off to the races. Providence, Newport, Westerly, Cranston, Warwick, Burrillville. It doesn't matter. We're gonna be everywhere. We're gonna be everywhere. Narragansett, everywhere. I want to be everywhere. So, again, if you know of any spot, if you're in Rhode Island that you think McTavish Spirits would do well at, hit me up. Let me know. Let's chat. And I'm excited to let everybody that knows me personally, more or less, be able to actually go out and buy a bottle at the liquor store. That's always been a dream of mine, to see my whiskey in my local watering holes, as they say. So very, very excited for that. I wanted to get announce that first and foremost because I've been working really hard on landing distribution here. It's months, it seemed like, and things usually don't move as fast as I like them to move, and things absolutely take longer than anticipated, and sometimes that's a little aggravating. But McLaughlin and Moran have been have been consistent. They've consistently reached out. They've been in great communication, and they have a great portfolio. They do Anheuser-Busch here in Rhode Island, and they also do Four Roses. So I'm really, really excited to expand on our relationship there and then grow McTavish in the great state of Rhode Island, the Ocean State, just in time for summer. Who doesn't want to drink a 7-year bottled and bond bourbon in 100-degree weather? You know what I mean? No, I got some cool ideas for cocktails and things like that. So super excited, super excited. Another thing that I've been doing that has really nothing to do with whiskey is posting TikToks. I love posting moody TikToks. It's my favorite thing to do. I like to go, and especially if it's like nighttime or kind of dark, I like to go, or rainy. Ooh, if it's raining outside, I'm happy. If it's raining outside, I'm happy. But I love going and like taking little like short videos of like the landscape or like a cool little anything. Go look at my TikTok. The past few have been kind of like what I call moody TikToks. And it's like my favorite thing to do now. I love doing it. Like even if it's just like I took a few videos today. I went to get coffee with my sister, and I like took a video of the coffee with the nice background. Then we got pizza, so I took a video of that, and then I took a video of the landscape. And I was like, I could make this into a little like 10-second TikTok, put some cool music behind it, and it's like the best. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my inner 21-year-old girl coming out. It could be. But I love making those moody TikToks, and even more so, I love watching them. So if you're posting like not even day in the lives, but like I can't describe how they are other than moody TikToks. That's what I have in my notes. I love making moody TikToks. That's the first bullet point. But if you're posting like between 15 and 1 minute long videos, and there's like cuts every 2 or 3 seconds, and it's just different like landscapes or different little shots in like a Rhode Island summer day or a moody, rainy, cozy day or something like that. And if it has anything to do with spooky season, then I am liking it. That is my TikTok algorithm, is spooky season in May. Well, I guess it's going to be Summerween coming up, which is a thing. Because as we all know, Halloween starts July 5th. Let's be so for real. Let's be so for real. Halloween starts July 5th. I'll die on that hill too. Summer ends after 4th of July. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, it's really hot, but that's only a mindset. Yeah. I got nothing else to say about that. Just a little rant. I literally have in my talking points, I love making moody TikToks. It's one of my favorite things to do. But let's talk some whiskey announcements. And these first two, I think, are kind of old news, but I just saw them, and they really surprised me. And then we'll talk about some new whiskey releases on Whiskey Advocate, and I'll give you my reactions to them. But the first article comes via FredMinnick.com. Fred Minnick, great friend of McTavish Spirits, just won 2 platinum awards, by the way. 2 platinum awards at the Ascot, the 2025 Ascot Awards. A platinum for the War Chief and a platinum for Legacy Series 1. Very proud of that. We posted it all over social media. And thank you very much to the Council of Tasters over there at the Ascot Awards who liked our whiskey. It's a blind tasting competition, by the way. So the judges don't know what they're tasting, and then they score them and rank them, and we got platinum, which is above gold. So very, very excited about that. The headline reads, Saga Spirits signs distribution deal with Southern Glazers. Saga Spirits, a new whiskey company from West Henderson, entered into a distribution agreement with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits for its portfolio of whiskey products. Southern Glazers will oversee the distribution of True Story whiskey, which includes a finished bourbon and finished rye, and Brothers of the Leaf portfolio of bourbon and rye. Now, I saw this, and the first thing I said was, whoa. I texted my good friend and just said, whoa, because we were at the Kentucky Castle just a few weeks ago. We met up there for a meeting/lunch, and we had tried the True Story whiskeys, which I thought were pretty good. The bottle is unique. I'm not throwing shade. The bottle's unique. I don't prefer that bottle style, but it definitely is eye-catching, and when you hold it, it's nice. Like, it feels good in your hands. I just like to be able to see the liquid. That's just my personal preference, and those bottles you can't. The Brothers of the Leaf whiskeys, which I found out is done by Wes Henderson's sons, by the way. Did not know that. They had a finished whiskey that I thoroughly enjoyed, but their bottles look a lot like mine. And actually, I saw them on the shelf next to each other at I think a Total Wine in Kentucky somewhere. And I was like, wow, those are similar bottles. They both look good. Nothing but respect for Brothers of the Leaf. Great bottle choice. The first time I saw Brothers of the Leaf was at, I forgot where I was, but I remember thinking, like, I didn't know they existed until after we had already launched McTavish, and I was like, those bottles look like McTavish bottles, but I think they started before us. But anyways, we were at the Kentucky Castle, which is now owned by Wes Henderson, and I believe they're turning it into a distillery of some sort. And I have been to the Kentucky Castle many times. I've done many events there. They're great people, and they have great whiskey. I was chatting with the bartender for a while. That's how I found out that Brothers of the Leaf was even associated with Wes Henderson. And from what I can see online and through the Whiskeyverse, obviously Wes Henderson is a Bourbon Hall of Famer, or at least an inductee. I don't know if he's actually in the Hall of Fame. He should be. I mean, he founded Angel's Envy. His father founded Woodford Reserve, or his grandfather, or someone like that. He's a legend, and he's a great guy. I've had the very, very lucky privilege of essentially doing a tasting with him, because me and Graham did a tasting at the Kentucky Castle in the beginning of 2023, beginning of 2024. And Wes Henderson was in attendance because he's a fan of Graham, and he sat front row right in front of me, which was like, I think I actually was talking about my rye whiskey, and I was like, Wes Henderson's literally sitting right in front of me, and I'm explaining what a 95% rye mash bill means. This is ridiculous. I'm 27. What is happening right now? And ended up meeting him and chatting for a while. He's a really, really, really nice man and so knowledgeable about whiskey. It doesn't surprise me that True Story and Brothers of the Leaf are as good as they are. I have ample experience at the Kentucky Castle. And when I was there, I wanted to try True Story and then figured out Brothers of the Leaf. Anyways, when I kind of see it online, I think, oh, this is another startup brand. I know Wes has a legendary bourbon name, don't get me wrong. Has all the means necessary, obviously, with this news to get distribution wherever he wants. I just didn't think it was growing that big that quickly. And it does say here in the article, Southern Glazers will be responsible for distributing Saga Spirits portfolio to retailers across the U.S. as the company builds its national presence via a market-by-market strategy, which tells me they are still kind of slowly growing, but Southern Glacier will support that growth when they are ready to enter a new market, which is very smart, by the way. I have, again, I think I said it last week, grow deep, not wide. People who try to grow too quickly in terms of distribution fail, in my opinion. Southern Glazer's wide network of transportation, logistics, and distribution capabilities to ensure that True Story's eye-catching, distinctive bottles, definitely eye-catching, are received by independent and chain liquor stores whose customers are eager to enjoy the latest offering from the Henderson family. Then it goes into some quotes. Wes Henderson is joined as Saga Spirits by his 6 sons, continuing the legacy of his father, Lincoln Henderson, who was responsible for creating some of America's most beloved spirits. Wes and his sons launched True Story Whiskey to trade and consumer audiences in September 2024, so just about a year after McTavish Spirits. The first chapter of a new American whiskey legacy. True Story's product portfolio includes True Story Finished Bourbon, a 90-proof Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey aged 5 to 6 years in charred American oak for $60. True Story Finished Rye, a 100-proof blend of trait rye whiskeys aged 5 to 8 years, SRP for $70. It's kind of expensive. Brothers of the Leaf's portfolio includes Kentucky Straight Bourbon and rye and a blend of bourbon and rye, all finished in toasted oak barrels. I knew that. All bottles are 112 proof, SRP $80. In addition to strengthening its regional presence through the distribution agreement, Saga Spirits is also increasing its visibility via local brand ambassadors. Storytellers are storytellers. That's smart. True story storytellers. Kudos. They know what they're doing. The storytellers are in each market where True Story is available and will help educate consumers about the products within the brand portfolio and encourage them to pull up a chair with friends, open a bottle, and tell their own true story. That is smart. That is nice. Great. Listen, I love seeing this. Now, I believe because of Wes Henderson and who he is and what he's built, that they will not get lost in the Southern Glazer portfolio. Southern Glazer is the largest distributor in the country by far, ranking ahead of R&DC. And that's my fear as someone who has a smaller brand of teaming with larger distributors is, are we going to get lost in the sauce? You know what I'm saying? Are we going to get lost in the portfolio of 100 different whiskeys? And I really like to have personal relationships with my distributors if I can. The states that we do the best in, I have the best relationship with my distributors in. And I've been very vocal about this. I don't necessarily believe that distributors either can or care about launching and building brands. It's more of just a vessel to get the whiskey into the market, and it's on the brand to build that brand mostly, where maybe 10, 15 years ago it was on the distributor to kind of expand the brand presence, and now I think it's flip-flopped because there's so many brands. Anyways, I think because of Wes Henderson and his allocades, that they won't get lost in the portfolio of Southern Glazer. I hope they don't, because I do think True Story has potential to be something that is going to be big. Just like I think McTavish, I think a lot of other brands that do it the correct way. Just because I wouldn't necessarily have chosen that bottle does not mean that the liquid is good. The liquid is good. I tasted it for myself. I enjoyed it. I had a pour of each, and I really like Wes Henderson, and I'm sure his sons are great. I love that it's a father-son's team. I think kin is kin. I say it all the time. Kin is kin. Nothing's more important in my life than family. Seems like they think the same thing. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Wes Henderson. I'm a fan of True Story. Now I'm a fan of Brothers of the Leaf, and I'm definitely a fan of the Kentucky Castle too. Shout out them. So I was just kind of perplexed when I read that story, and this was dated April 29th, so this is like a month ago. I'm just seeing it now, and I just thought it was kind of crazy. Anyways, another cool story that I read, which I really thought was interesting. This comes from Whiskey Advocate, and this was May 19th, written by Jake Eamon. Belle Meade is back in Nelson family hands, and I've actually never had Belle Meade, but I love the bottles. And iconic sour mash whiskey, like it's just a cool brand, and I know they blew up. They got bought out by Constellation. Now it's back in the Nelson family hands. Brothers Andy and Charlie Nelson resurrected their family distilling legacy by launching Belle Meade Bourbon in 2012 and opening Nelson Green Breer Distillery in Nashville 2 years later. With Belle Meade and the flagship Nelson's Green Breer, the accolades piled up, and Constellation Brands took a minority stake in 2016 and then acquired majority control in 2019. A few years later, the brothers left the company and their namesake behind, but at the end of last year, they quietly regained the rights to Belle Meade, returning ownership to the family. I don't think it gives like the details of why that happened, but they just announced it, and they're keeping it within the Nashville area and slowly growing it back to what it was maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened with Constellation and Belle Meade and this entire thing. With Belle Meade once again back in family hands, it will be positioned as a Nashville-centric brand for the foreseeable future. The immediate path forward is to establish deep local roots, keeping the products available only in Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Smart. Grow deeper, not wider. The whiskeys currently are being supplied by MGP in Bardstown. We're always open to new sources, Andy says. The key is to make that final flavor profile consistent regardless of the varying sources. Couldn't agree more. Talks about the lineup a bit, talks about some of the other liquors, talks about maybe opening a distillery. Meanwhile, back at Nelson's Green Beer, Constellation has reduced production and laid off staff, a scenario that becomes all too familiar in the whiskey world these days. Our restaurant, bar, events, tours, and tastings at Nelson's Green Beer continue to be fully operational and open for business as usual, and our distillery is operating on a modified schedule, Constellation said. Okay, so basically they were kind of deprioritizing Belle Meade and Nelson Green Beer product, and the sons, Andy and Charlie, or the brothers, I should say, not the sons. Sounds like the brothers started the brand. Um, didn't like that. So and listen, I have never had Belle Meade. Does it say there? It doesn't say anything about price on the article. But when I first got into whiskey, I saw Belle Meade everywhere, and I thought it was a cool bottle. Never tasted it. I'd love to taste it. I love the label. I love the horses. I love the whiskey barrels on it. I think it's a cool label, great colorway, great palette, like color palette. And I love to see stuff like this, kind of reminiscent of when Dave Port and I bought back Barstool for $1. Kind of like that. Like it's coming back to the home team, you know what I mean? And it's great that it got bought out by Constellation, and I'm sure they made a bunch of money, and it was great, and I'm sure it was great for a while, but things always change, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm happy to hear that it's back in the family's hands, and definitely, if I'm ever in Tennessee, I'd like to try Belle Meade and go to this distillery or tasting room, which it looks like they have, and learn more about the brands. I just thought there was a cool thing, a cool, nice, and to me, a nice, heartwarming story. Belle Meade's back with the family. I don't know the circumstances of how it's back, but again, it's back. Now we got some new whiskey releases. And this is on Whiskey Advocate. Came out May 23rd, so I'm a few days behind on it. I need some water. We're just going to quickly go through the new releases on Whiskey Advocate here. And there's a few. I took a peek at this article this morning. Woodford Reserve Distillery Series Tawny Port Finish Blend, 45.2 ABV, $65 for a pint, a limited availability. Master Distiller Elizabeth McCall's newest Woodford Distillery Series released first combined rye and bourbon together. From there, McCall added a tawny port finished bourbon to the blend. Once I was married, she balanced the existing components out by adding more unfinished bourbon to the mix. The whiskey was bottled at Woodford's standard 90.4 proof. It's going to be allocated to Kentucky retailers, the distillery itself, and online via Woodford's website. I feel like these kind of like wine finishes or port finishes, whatever you want to call it, are becoming less and less popular these days. I feel like everybody does it, which is not bad. I love wine finished bourbons. Don't get me wrong, but I've actively thought about what McTavish could do in that realm, but I'm not gonna lie. I don't see I wish they like the distillery series. I think it's cool, but I want is this an experimental thing that they do? Like I know they do like the double and like the triple double and the quadruple double and the Russell Westbrook. I don't know. I feel like they do all these different releases that are strictly for the distillery, which is great. Like it drives traffic. Not that Woodford needs it, but I understand the premise. But are these like just like experiments, or are they trying to add these into the not the main portfolio, but like is this something that will be rebatched and redone, or is it just a yearly thing? I don't know. I've never had a Woodford Reserve Distillery Series release, and I don't really drink a whole lot of Woodford to begin with. I've been to Woodford, I think, twice, and I've done the tasting there. So I've had all their main core products, which I like, and I'm a fan of Woodford. I love the Double Oaked. The Double Oaked is fantastic whiskey. $65 for a pint. Not sure if I'd dish out that type of money for a pint, but I suppose if I was in for sales and at the distillery, I probably would. Woodford's great, trusted legacy brand, so I'd be interested to try it. Next one, Rebel 100 Childress Vineyards Cabernet Franc Barrel Finished Bourbon, another wine finish. $40 a bottle, 3,000 bottles available. For its latest release, Rebel partnered with North Carolina-based winery Childress Vineyards. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Childress. The whiskey is Rebel's flagship wheated 4-year-old bourbon that is then finished in Cabernet Franc barrels from Childress Vineyards, imbuing it with notes of sweet berry, caramel, and spice per master distiller Dram. There are just 3,000 bottles of the bourbon available, which is kind of like that's not a small amount, but it's also not a huge amount, I guess, especially for Rebel. I mean, Lux Row. I mean, and they're allocated solely to North Carolina retail stores and Lux Row distillers in Bardstown, Kentucky, which makes sense if this is coming from a North Carolina-based winery. Rebel has served as the official sponsor of NASCAR team Richard Childress Racing, owned by Childress Vineyards, owner Richard Childress, and driver Kyle Busch since 2024, so it's not a random partnership. Cool. Yeah, I'd definitely try it. Great price, limited allocation. Cabernet Franc, I don't drink that as a wine, but, I do like that kind of, like, dark berry sweetness, kind of like those candies that are dark cherry chocolate, kind of. So I'd be interested to try it, and I love Rebel. I mean, Rebel 100 is good whiskey. It's great whiskey, actually, and the entire, usually their releases are very good. The single barrels are also very good as well. Here's one that caught my eye. No picture. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Bourbon, batch B525. Now, I haven't bought an Elijah Craig in forever, and I've done so many reviews of Elijah Craig in the past, barrel proof, I mean, that I think I had a pour of Elijah Craig barrel proof on the rocks a few weeks ago, but I still have all my bottles like here. Like I don't drink that often, so and having like 9 different barrel proofs of Elijah Craig is kind of a lot. But I remember I really liked B520. I think that's one of my favorite releases ever. But here, each year, Heaven Hill releases 3 distinct batches, obviously. Don't have to get into that. Carries an age statement of 11 years and 6 months, which is cool. It's been a mainstay in Heaven Hill's portfolio since 2013. Yeah. It's pretty self-explanatory for us bourbon drinkers what it is. It's available nationwide at $75. Now I'm at the point where if I saw this, I probably wouldn't buy it. Ask Connor 5 years ago, and I would be looking for this, but I'm in a different part of my life now. I look forward to a nice glass of Oyster Bay Sauvignon Blanc at the end of most days now. But I still enjoy a whiskey after dinner, but, it depends. It really depends. Plus, like, I'm a broke entrepreneur. What am I saying? I'm not spending $75 on barrel proof bourbon. That's way out of my price range. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Jefferson's Blend of Straight Rye. 44% ABV, $35 SRP, available nationwide. I know Jefferson's is making that brand spanking new distillery down there in I think it's in Southern Kentucky. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. For its latest release, Kentucky-based Jefferson's is going outside its bourbon-centric comfort zone for a rare rye release. This expression combines the brand's ship-aged ocean rye with other ryes that range in age from 6 to 9 years old. According to founder Trey Zoller, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, the goal was to showcase the brand's blending skills by creating a versatile whiskey that could stand up in cocktails and work well neat around the rocks. I'm not going to lie, this can be a different subject for a different day, but I don't understand what stands up well in cocktails means. Like, do you want the proof to come through, or like, do you want the, like, it's really tough to have the, like, on an old fashioned, for example, there's sugar, there's bitters. Like, yes, you can taste the whiskey, and if it's like a higher proof whiskey, I'm sure you could taste more of the proof, but like, how do you make it stand out in a cocktail? I don't know. I could be speaking stupid. I'm sure there might be bartenders watching this, like, throwing their phones or whatever, or like punching their radio. No, who uses radios? Punching their car, like whatever, just saying like, Connor, this is how, like, it's super important. I don't know. I don't understand it. Anyways, considering the age of the liquid included in the blend, 35 seems like a very reasonable price point. Yeah, I would agree with that, Whiskey Advocate. I've never been the biggest fan of Jefferson's. It's not bad whiskey. I just don't like reach for it. I do know that they were produced at Kentucky Artisan Distillery, whom I have a close relationship with Jade there, the master distiller. But I know they are opening up their own distillery, I believe. Well, I know they are. I don't know when that's supposed to be open. It might even be open now. I don't know. But I try it. I try it, especially if it's not something that they usually venture to. Being 6 to 9 years old, I wonder if it actually has an age statement on the bottle. I can't see it in the picture, but it's cool that they're like advertising. They're at least marketing that it's a blend of 6 to 9-year-old rye whiskey. So that's cool. Next one, Cedar Ridge, the quintessential special release, number 5 American single malt, $100 SRP at 58.9%, limited availability. Fittingly enough, Master Distiller Murphy Quint finished Cedar Ridge, who I've recently connected with on Instagram, by the way. And I'm definitely, next time I'm in his area, I'm going to Cedar Ridge Distillery, for sure. Murphy Quint finished Cedar Ridge's 5th limited edition quintessential American single malt in the combination of 5 casks. Whoa. Imported port and Madeira casks, and port Marquette red wine, and V Madeira-inspired wine casks from the distillery's on-site winery. Didn't know they had a winery. That makes sense. The new release is available at the Cedar Ridge Distillery in Swisher, Iowa, and select states, and online at the cedarridgedistillery.com. That's cool. I have had a little bit of Cedar Ridge's stuff, and I do thoroughly enjoy it, so I would definitely be interested in trying this. Single malt, American single malt, obviously a new category now recognized by the TTB. So big thing there that happened a few months ago, and American single malt is taking off, and I love it because I love single malt whiskeys. So next one, Peg Leg Porker, Pitmaster Reserve, 15-year-old double oaked rye. Whoa, what the heck? 15-year-old double oaked rye, 50% ABV, 400 doll hairs. Okay. And available in the tasting room and nationwide. Nashville-based Peg Leg Spirits has unveiled the 2nd edition of its high-end series, Pitmaster Reserve. The first edition, released in 2020, was a 15-year-old bourbon, and the latest is a rye of the same age that was sourced from Canada, bashed and aged in American oak barrels, and finished with toasted American white oak staves for 6 months. The first edition was a hot ticket item, selling out on the day of release, with 2,900 bottles available. Each expression comes with a commemorative case and a pig bottle stopper. Kind of cool. An homage to the founder's profession as a pitmaster. Touted as the only whiskey brand developed and owned by a pitmaster, Carrie Bringle, the label bears the name of the owner's barbecue restaurant and catering company. Both the whiskey side and the restaurant were launched in 2013. Since then, there's been an array of age statement bourbons from 4 to 12 years old alongside an 8-year-old rye. The brand also opened a tasting room in Music City last July, where this release and the other expressions in the lineup are available. Yeah, I mean, the pig bottle stopper is kind of cool, but dang. I mean, a 15-year-old double-oaked rye whiskey is crazy. I'd be really interested to taste that, but I would not be interested to pay $400 for that. And I never heard of Peg Leg Spirits or Peg Leg Porker. I'm going to do more research on that. I'm going to note that down. The next two are Frank August, which I think does a great job on the social media side. And it's the case study 05 Wheated Reserve Bourbon for $130, and the small batch Kentucky Straight Rye for $70. Lists a bunch of state it's available in. Availability for the case study is in retailers across 17 states. And I think I'm going to end this section here with the Frank August stuff because there's a few others behind. There's 3 more. I will say that the blending house of Frank August is really cool, and I like the minimalist approach. It's very sophisticated, and it's sexy. It's sleek. I like it. I think it kind of exudes a lot of what we try to do with McTavish spirits. And this rye is interesting for $70. It's the flagship rye, supplementing a flagship bourbon that launched last summer. Well, there's no definition for small batch, as we all know. The brand defined its own small batch rye and bourbon as made from 10 to 15 barrels per batch. The whiskey itself is not distilled by Frank August, which has been a non-distilling producer since its debut in 2022, but by an undisclosed Kentucky source. Now that Potter Jane Distilling Co., distillery co-founded by Maker's Mark alums Denny Potter and Jane Bowie, is up and running, the brand will be made there. Cool. I like that. Brand co-founder Jonathan Crocker, a former fashion executive, makes sense why the bottle looks good, is also responsible for the brand's blending with guidance from Potter and Bowie. Cool. All right, so it's going to be made by Potter Jane, and I see them on LinkedIn all the time. So that's cool. I like that. Milliman Green's The Answer, cool name. 5-year-old straight bourbons, $150 for a set of 2 pints. Available online nationwide beginning May 28th, which is today. That's cool. 54% and 58% respectively. Basically, it's whiskey aged in 2 different locations. And Milliman Green is a Texas-based brand. Cool. I like that. Spirit Hound Bottled the Bond Sherry Cask American Single Malt. $125, 50% distillery exclusive. Uses Palo Cortado sherry casks, which is cool. And then the World Whiskey Society 20-year-old cigar blend Gothic Edition American Light Whiskey. Whoa. $169, pretty cool bottle, 48% ABV, limited availability. In recent times, cigar whiskeys, expressions that are specifically made to pair with premium tobacco products like cigars and pipes, have garnered much attention. These whiskeys often undergo a complex cask finishing regimen that's intended to add sweeter notes to counterbalance the earthy and smoky flavors coming from the tobacco. This newcomer from World Whiskey Society is no different, finishing 20-year-old light whiskey, likely sourced from MGP, nothing wrong with that, in 6 different types of casks previously holding cognac, tawny port, Awamori, tequila, Pedro Jimenez sherry, and Madeira. Cool. I would definitely like to try that. I love light whiskey. I think it's tasty. It's super sweet, like a confetti fun cake. So finishing it in a bunch of different kind of like wine casks, cognac casks is pretty cool. So those are all the new releases that I saw on Whiskey Advocate. I thought I wanted to talk about it real quick. We're 42 minutes in. Let's talk about what I wanted to talk about. Push the iPad out of here. Actually, don't even need this anymore. And we saw a lot of it in the stuff that I just read, which is brand transparency. And this is kind of where I'm going to speak more from the heart in this week's topic for the last little bit of the show, because I'm pretty I'm a very hard believer. I'm a passionate believer in brand transparency. And while we do that, we're going to talk about the Keeper Batch 1 rye whiskey from McTavish Spirits. This was our Batch 1 rye whiskey that we did and released in September 2023. We did about 350 cases of it, and I don't know how many bottles that is, whatever 350 times 6 is. That's how many bottles we did. And it's a favorite among the people that taste it. And it's a great rye. I personally love it. I wish we did more. And the reason that we wanted to batch the rye whiskeys for 2 reasons. One, I knew that rye whiskey was just skyrocketing in popularity. It's still pretty hard to sell a rye whiskey to retailers or to distributors or to whomever. But if you can talk about it for just a few minutes, I think and then taste it, it becomes a favorite to almost everybody. That was the case with this. We batched it because I knew rye whiskey was going to take off, and it's becoming more and more popular. But also, it's still a little bit difficult, though, to sell. But also, it gives us the ability to go out and find the coolest rye whiskey that we can and then batch each. So we can find the barrels, buy the barrels, bottle the barrels, release the barrels, and then that's our batch. And maybe that's not the strategy we'll do forever, but for right now, I think that's a cool way to do it. Having the Keeper be our batched rye whiskey, I think, is just the way to go. I like to have a mainstay bourbon, which will be the War Chief, and maybe more down the line. And who knows, maybe we'll create a blend of a rye whiskey that is a mainstay. But I like the Keeper being I really like the Keeper being a batched product where we get to experiment with different ryes. And this was the first one that we did. We found these barrels at Green River Distillery in Owensboro, Kentucky that were just fan-freaking-tastic. And we sampled them, and we were kind of blending it with other things. And then basically, towards the end of kind of the R&D session, we kind of just started proofing it down, putting water in it, in the samples, and got down to what I thought was around 93, 95 proof-ish. And it just became so sweet These are both 95% rye, 5% malted barley mash bills. Or this is not both. This is a 95.5 recipe in the Keeper Batch 1. And proving it down to what is now 93 proof, it just made it, I call it a bourbon drinker's rye. And you might be, if you're a whiskey head watching this, rolling your eyes right now as to, rye stinks, it's the worst, or you can't have a bourbon drinker's rye. I don't mean it literally. I just mean it like it's very sweet and inviting. It doesn't have a lot of the sting of a very earthy, dill, pickly, spicy rye forward rye whiskey. It's very subtle. It's very approachable, and I really think that this is a great rye whiskey for people that don't necessarily love rye whiskey. When I'm at a tasting, I always tell people, we have our rye whiskey here, the Keeper Batch 1. It's actually not available anymore. You should try it. And they say, oh, that's okay. I don't like rye whiskey. And I say, hold up right there, partner. Let me tell you something. I can't promise that you'll like this whiskey, but I'm so confident that I can promise that you won't hate it. And that's a little secret. If you want someone to try your stuff, that's a pretty good way. I'll give that advice for free. I can't promise that you'll love it, but I can promise that you won't hate it. And it has worked for the Keeper 100%. I'm batting 1,000 with it. And it's true. I think if people, not just with our rye whiskey, but with rye whiskey in general, just taste it and walk through what they're tasting in a controlled setting, there is a much deeper appreciation there than just grabbing a rye whiskey off the shelf. So with the Keeper, we wanted to be transparent, and honestly, I'll be a little bit open here. I probably would have done this a little bit different now. We put age for a minimum of 2 years on the label. We didn't put the mash bill. We did put distilled by Green River Distillery and, bottled by Coastal Pure in South Carolina at the time. Now we have a different bottling partner, but I wish we put the mash bill, and I wish we put the exact age, which is like 2 years and 11 months and like 16 days or something like that. It's basically 3 years. When I tell people, that's why I say it's basically 3 years. It's like a few weeks underneath 3 years old Kentucky straight rye whiskey. Priced at $49.99 online. It's been sold out online forever. You can still find it in select Kentucky markets. Liquor Barn still has some, but I think we just sold. I think our distributor, Kentucky Eagle, had 2 cases left, like a few weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure Liquor Barn scooped them up. So I believe we're out, like, officially. Like, I have no bottles. I have an open bottle right here of the rye that I poured from, and I can't pour much because this is what I have to taste right now. This and 5 other bottles have to come with me to Alaska when we do the Alaska Highland Games, because I'm tasting the rye whiskey, and so we have all 3 of our products lined up. So can't open this one, but I can put it on the show for the nice shot. So as I smell this, even though I already know what I'm going to smell, I do wish that we were a bit more transparent with this, even though we talk about it all the time. That's how much of a standard I like to hold up McTavish Spirits when it comes to transparency, because you're always fighting an uphill battle, People want to know more, and the celebrity aspect and everything, it's almost like you can never win. And I think the number one way to gain trust and authenticity is to be transparent. And that's why I think brand transparency and authenticity is the number one driver of growth in whiskey today. Now, obviously, you need to have good whiskey. Don't get me wrong. You can't be bottling bullshit. You got to have something good. But 99 out of 100 bottles are pretty freaking good. You can find good elements in a lot of different whiskeys. I think that anybody that would try the Keeper Batch 1 would agree. This is a damn good rye whiskey, and it's appropriately priced, at $50. I don't necessarily think that the $10 per aged year method kind of applies to rye whiskey the way it applies to bourbon. I think rye, it ages, it matures quicker. so it doesn't necessarily reflect $10 per aged year, which is why a lot of younger rye whiskeys are priced a lot more expensive. For example, Peerless Rye is like $100 for a 2-year rye. It's very good, don't get me wrong, but it's barrel proof like 115 or something like that. So, but for brands like us that are really trying to separate ourselves from the pack, we have a lot of things going for us. We have beautiful bottles, we have great whiskey, we have a great team in Ivy and Sean and Kale and Caleb and Gracie. We have a great vision from Graham, and we have Graham's name and everything like that. There's still more, because a lot of other brands have things like that too. And I think how we do it is by being as open and transparent as possible, which is why we always say to people, half of when I speak to people now is kind of explaining what an NDP is. What is a non-distilling producer? How is that? Is that even a thing? Like, that is how we want to be as a company. And I think it's important for other brands to do that. And I will name some other brands that do this very well after the sniff. And on the sniff, man, on the sniff, that's what I'm going to start saying. On the sniff, not on the nose, on the sniff. The Keeper Batch 1 is so inviting. You get a lot of that typical Kentucky rye whiskey attributes. I get some bright green apple, a little bit of earthiness, almost like a little bit of like a fresh cut grass type of thing. I get some light spearmint, evergreen, mint type of thing. Not a lot of sharp peppery notes, but some lighter baking spices. Nothing too heavy. You get some of that caramel on there, a little bit of vanilla. And then, yeah, it's really, really nice. It's really inviting. Some of that, like really inviting, like a spicy apple, bright green apple is kind of what I think this smells like. Very fruit forward, very, definitely a bit spicier in nature just because of the rye content. But once we get to the palate, that's where this changes. It becomes almost like a vanilla bomb. So I'm gonna drink it right now because it looks so good. Cheers. First sip always goes down. Yeah, it's very light, very inviting, very good. I'm a bit biased, but it's just, yeah, and then on the finish, you definitely get that Kentucky hug, and I can say it on this one. I couldn't say it on the War Chief because it's technically not Kentucky whiskey. But this is, and it doesn't have a long finish. It definitely kind of, dissipates a bit quicker. The 90, we proof it down significantly, obviously going down to 93, but I really think that's a sweet spot. This is so inviting. This is a special rye whiskey. I really think it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't have bottled it if I didn't believe in it. But it's just it's almost like a burst of vanilla on the mid to back palate. It's like it stays true to the nose on the tip of the tongue, but then it just becomes so like vanilla bean ice cream with a little bit of like fruit green apple on it. Like it remains a little bit tart, and then the mintiness continues to stay through, and then I get a lot of like more earthy notes on this. So, and by earthy I don't mean like dense. I mean like a fresh cut grass is really what I attribute to this. It's not like you take grass and put it in your mouth, but it's reminiscent of the way it smells, I suppose. It's kind of just a little bit fresh and sharp in a way, but still massively inviting. I think this is a super inviting rye whiskey, and I know that people love it in cocktails. I don't know if it technically plays well in cocktails, but people love it. Let me take one more sip. Yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of it's not as dense as the War Chief. It's definitely not coating my mouth the same way. But we didn't want to do that with this. We didn't want this to be something overpowering. We wanted this to be something that was approachable. as what we can do with rye whiskey, the barrels that we choose, what we want to do moving forward. The Keeper Batch 1 is definitely something that, a non-rye whiskey drinker will enjoy, which is why I call it a bourbon drinker's rye. And, is this the best rye whiskey that you'll ever drink in the history of rye whiskey? No, it's not. But it's for $50 as a limited edition product, 350 cases we made. I thought this was a really great deal. I thought it was really approachable, really fair, and I'm glad we did it. And I'm very, very excited for whenever we do batch 2, which is always an ongoing thing. I have my eyes on some whiskey that I think I might want to do for batch 2, but I'm really happy with doing batch 1 here, and it's definitely got a special place in my heart. Don't get me wrong, but that's us being transparent. Like we want it to be something that people trust what is on the bottle, trust our authenticity, and trust that's going to be good whiskey. And there's a lot of other brands that do that too. Penelope does a great job. I think, again, Pursuit does a really great job at being authentic and very, transparent with what they're doing. Really, any NDP that tells you exactly where the whiskey's coming from, it is an A+ in my book, because that's what I want to know. Penelope and Pursuit are the first two that come to mind. I just got a new whiskey in the mail that they sent to me by High and Wicked. I'll probably review it in the next week or two. My brother tried it, and he said he really liked it, but I was looking at their label, and it was really, like, everything that you could possibly know was on the label. I had to do more research on them, but I really enjoyed. It's a sharp-looking bottle, first and foremost, but it gave you everything: char types, mash bills, age statements, etc. It was really nice. It was a nice change of pace, and I'm excited to try that whiskey. But in a world of thousands of brands, I think the best way to stand out is to be transparent. And I think that will drive it doesn't immediately drive sales. I'm not saying be transparent and you'll sell more bottles. No. But it will drive authenticity, which will drive brand trust, which then could translate to sales. If someone trusts in your product, they're more willing to spend the money to buy said product or to attend a tasting or anything of that nature. If you got trust, if you have brand identity, trust, then that's how you build that base of supporters, which is, we try to do that to the best of our ability it might be at a little bit of a slower pace, but that's what we try to do. Anyways, we're just about an hour into this, so we're going to end it here. I appreciate you guys joining me today, and I hope that you check out our website, McTavishSpirits.com. You won't be able to find the Keeper, unfortunately, but you will be able to find the War Chief. $74.99, shipped right to your door. Again, if you go to sealbox.com, SEELBACHS, I'll link it down below, and you search McTavish Spirits, you can still buy Legacy Series 1, which I'll review very soon as well, and we'll talk about the influence of Scotch whiskey on American whiskey and why the hell our motto is a Scotsman's Dream of America. We'll get more into detail there. Follow McTavish Spirits on all social medias at McTavish Spirits. I'm Connor_whiskey on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Go follow me on there. YouTube, Who Gives a Dram? That's the name of the podcast. Make sure you check out the Who Gives a Dram YouTube channel. I will link it down below, as always. And I had a really fun time this episode. Lots of good whiskey talk, drinking some good whiskey on a beautiful day outside. It's just today's one of those days where I'm really happy to be alive, and I'm really thankful that I have some great whiskey that I can attach my name to, and I'm really thankful for my team. I'm really thankful for my family, the people that support me. It's just it's really just really thankful today, and I'm so happy that I can kind of yap on this podcast again. So until next time, thank you very much, and as always, whiskey's the water of life, so let's start living.